and nature of sports around here, I sometimes slip out. Sometimes it's Mike Love from the Beach Boys or, I don't know, Rob Halford from Judas Priest. And sometimes it's a comedian and friend of a friend. And Rich Johnson and I have been friends for better part of a quarter of a century. He does a podcast with a guy who's been a comedian for as long as he's been funny, as well as doing hits on Seinfeld. He's now working with a podcast called That's Gold with Steve Hytner. He's a friend of my friend Rich Johnson from our days doing sports pages together. Steve Hytner's out in Los Angeles, still suffering New York sports out there, probably suffering more than ever as the Rams and the Chargers are on to things. I remember L.A. back when they didn't even have a football team, Steve Hytner. You remember back then, right? Like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, now they got, you know what? And now they got a couple, and they're pretty good.
I didn't think it would work. I mean, I'm one of those guys that thought, like, yeah, football in L.A., good luck with that, with the pretty girls and the surfboard and all that stuff and the palm trees. And I still don't think it's going to work with 2 teams out there, but it works when you win. And I'm coming out there for Christmas. Exactly. The Ravens play the Chargers down in Carson, which is just outside Long Beach. And I'll be out there for 3 or 4 days for Christmas. But when the teams win, people pay attention, like the Dodgers and the Lakers, right?
Yeah, I don't know how, obviously for the Chargers, it's going to be, I think, even trickier. I mean, they're winning, and I don't really think they're drawing. The Rams are drawing pretty well, but I mean, they have to get into their homes, and it's going to take time. But again, that's because they're winning. I mean, obviously, I don't see when the Chargers are a losing team how they're going to draw in the LA area. I just don't see it.
Well, and I would have said the same thing about the Rams because the Rams looked more hopeless when they got there in regard to ever winning. It's miraculous when you win. It's really, really hard to do. I mean, you're a Giants fan. I'm a Ravens fan. We're feeling nice about ourselves when our team's in the Super Bowl, but you're trying to rebuild Eli. We're trying to figure out Flacco here, and we've had prosperity the last month, but when your team's 4-5 or your team's where the Jets have been forever, it's kind of hard to hang in, and I think the one thing we're seeing a lot of, and I see it everywhere, I was in Atlanta the other day, empty seats, man. People aren't going to the games even when they buy the tickets.
Well, they got great home theaters now. Everybody's connected to technology. Everybody's got a great home theater. They want to talk to people while they're at the games. When they built that Levi's Stadium in San Francisco, that was a big focus, was making sure people could be connected during the game, because that's if people watch the game, they want to connect with their friends.
Well, I know you're connecting out on the internet in different ways, and this is fascinating to me for anyone. I've often thought about going into comedy. Louis Anderson and I've had multiple conversations now, multiple coasts. Incredibly nice man, and has offered to coach me and push me through. And a lot of folks know, and I'll bring this up with you. I'm doing a Tony Robbins retreat here this week. I'm going to miss the Kansas City game, and I know you sat in on a Bill Maher show with him at one point, but I mean, you go back a long way with Seinfeld and, getting parts and having agents and being a part in New York and LA and all that stuff. The podcasting thing really is an interesting reach for everyone to say, I can converse, I can find my audience anywhere a mobile device is located, right, and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, That's Gold with Steve Hytner, and we got the focus is we do have a little bit of a sports gambling focus because it's legal in all the states now. It's slowly going to be in every state. Believe it or not, there are tons of people that weren't breaking the law. They didn't want to have a bookie. They didn't want to go online. So we discuss sports gambling to some degree, but we also just talk about what it's like to be men of a certain age. It's completely unfair. For me, if I'm in a photo and I'm not surrounded by my wife, children, and grandchildren, I'm creepy, right? So I just feel like there's a whole market out there. So we discuss the gold standard on anything, be it cigars, be it travel, be it food, be it whatever it might be. But we also definitely do a thing on sports gambling. We talk about it. To me, when people gamble, like why? If there's 5,000 games to bet on that day, why do you pick the one you pick? And it usually has to do with a story. And the story is always interesting to me. Why'd you place that bet? Why'd you bet that team? Why'd you bet that right now? And then it
always comes down to gut feel unless you have analytics or something, right? Like literally,
right. And that's what I mean. Because, look, podcasts are all about storytelling, right? Because, there's nothing to look at. So it's all storytelling. So to me, I always like to get that story of, okay, why that bet? What was your gut feeling here? Why'd you make that bet as opposed to that other bet? So it kind of works out great. We have a segment near the end of the show that I never felt stronger about anything in my life. where we talk about what our bet is for the next day. And then this next day, the show starts with What Was I Thinking?, where we go over what the hell happened with that bet.
You know why I don't bet on sports? And I guess, look, first off, I've been doing this for a living. It'll be 35 years next month. I've been doing this since I was 15 years old. I've spent plenty of time in sweaty locker rooms around coaches. I remember one time watching film, like literally with Marvin Lewis in the mid-'90s. He taught me about football, and every Friday I'd pack a lunch, and me and him and Jim Schwartz would sit together and watch film together. And I remember at one point Marvin turning to me and saying, man, I don't know how people bet on this. Like, I'm in here coaching. I have no idea where the ball is going to go. No, how do people put their money on this? Like, I don't understand it. And that was 20 years ago. And I didn't grow up in a house where, my dad didn't go to the track. My dad wasn't a gambler. My dad had the little pools. My dad worked at Bethlehem Steel at the, in the steelworking industry. And, on Fridays they would distribute a pool, or they'd have a block pool for $1 a pool and, $25 a quarter or whatever it was back in the 70s. When the Colts were here. But my dad wasn't like into that, and so it's not in my blood in that way. But also where I am now, where the league is going to be participating in the profit of this, which they've always eschewed. And going back to Jimmy the Greek, there is no gambling, there are no gamblers, we don't have point spreads, all that nonsense, and and threatening their partners for putting the point spreads up and all that. Now they're going to get the VIG on it, and at some point, and I know Congress has its hands full right now with a crooked president amongst a bunch of other things, but they're going to have their referees in on this now. Like, I don't know how that's going to work, and I know it's worked in Europe to some degree, maybe with or without corruption, and you're old enough to remember, NBA officials in on the action as well.
Yeah.
It's very, very sleazy when the league's in on it, and the league is adjudicating what pass interference is or isn't, or what a catch is or isn't, right?
Yeah, but I think that kind of conspiracy stuff, those feelings are out there anyway right now. So I don't know if that's really going to change anything. I think there's people that think the refs are in on it, that several of the leagues are running things the way they want to run them. And I think about the gambling thing is sometimes, look, the point about the coach saying, I don't even know what's going to happen here. If you're putting your mortgage on it, you're out of your mind. But some people just like to put an interest, a betting interest, so that I'm a little more interested in the game. And that's the kind of thing that I always did. I mean, and I bumped down my betting once I had a kid in the world. Once you have a kid, you're like, what am I doing with this money? This is insanity.
Are you up or down Lifetime? Be honest with me right now. Are you up or down?
Absolutely down. On our show, we talk about that. I'm not an analytics guy. I'm a complete gut guy. I'm a complete fan. How could I possibly be up?
Well, that's the problem with the Ravens. Every Friday, I pick the Ravens to win. I've been doing that for 22 years. I wouldn't be very good at betting on it. Steve Hytner is our guest. That's gold, Jerry, as he would say, and also on Seinfeld. And you can find him at that'sgold.gold out on the internet, as well as at Hytner out on Twitter, where you're still trying to be funny. Is it harder or easier to be funny at this tender point? I mean, I still see people sharing George Carlin videos, and 30 years old now, and about how corrupt the government is and big business and whatever those things are, and they still fit in 2019 as we head into a new year, right?
Well, what happens is, look, for me as a stand-up, I do stand-up all over the country. To me, stand-up gets easier as time goes on, but not because of the world, just because you have more life experiences to draw on. You're more comfortable in your own skin. Stand-up is all about stage time. If somebody's young and wants to try stand-up, they're obsessed with the writing, the material. Yes, material has to be there to some degree, but you have to figure out who you are up there. You're not exactly who you think you are. You're not exactly yourself. You're some version of yourself. So to me, it's all about stage time. And young people, or they don't even have to be young chronologically, but people new to stand-up are obsessed with the material. But trust me, you see a lot of these headliners out there. It's like, that's not the funniest guy in the world, but people want to see him because there's a personality there. There's a shared experience.
Well, Louis Anderson said to me, you've been on radio for 30 years. You could do it, now, but you're going to have to work at it. You'll have to figure out what works and what not, and it's going to be different than sitting here taking phone calls for a living for 15 years, which I did, and trying to make that funny every day, which I've often thought, like, the Grease Man I grew up, I thought that was the art form, was making almost anything funny, and I think sort of the in the crowd, when the crowd starts yelling at you, and, being able to literally improv to make it up as you go along. Right?
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. I don't want to get too far into it, but I've considered a lot of it as being present in the room. As soon as you tell the people in the room, that you're present in the same room as them, instead of you're just going to get up there and recite your act and hope it goes well. The whole thing is to jump into the mud pit with them, right? And make sure they understand that I'm controlling this situation, but, we're all in the same room. So very often early in my set, I'll comment on something in the room or somebody in the room just to put us all in the same place. And to me, that's the fastest way to get the crowd to go, okay, let's see what you got.
Techniques. That's Gold with Steve Hytner is the podcast. How often are you doing this? I mean, I do this because I have a radio station to fill 168 hours a week, and some of it charitably per the FCC and my license and whatnot. But when I hear people, I'm a podcaster, I do podcast, I'm like, when? How often? Why?
Well,
where?
we're doing it 5 days a week. We're doing it 5 days a week. So, we're doing it Monday through Friday. We deal with the bets we bet. We have guests on all the time. Like I said, talking about the experience, anything that's the gold standard of anything, be it travel, be it films. We talk about all that stuff. We talk about as much insane stuff as possible, wrapped around a little bit of sports gambling. But we're 5 days a week. So, we keep the show to like 30 to 45 minutes. It's great for your drive to work. It's great just getting ready for work. With these smart speakers now, people listen to podcasts just getting ready in the morning.
I've been podcasting for 25 years. I just didn't call it that. I always say that's what the kids are calling it today, podcast. But it's not really the kids, right? I mean, this is. I mean, I go to my yoga studio. I go out. Everybody says to me, I listen to you in all different kind of ways. But I think it's also podcasting and Joe Rogan and the people that are doing it incredibly successfully. That there is an audience for it, and it isn't as young as you think, right? I mean, it's people who are used to radio, right? It's the new radio.
Yeah. And they enjoy it. They enjoy listening in their car. And the other thing is, podcast is interesting because it's not competitive, because you download it and listen to it when you want. So it's not like you have to worry about the other guy's podcast, which is on at the same time as yours. So in that way, podcasts are really supportive of each other. You can go on other people's podcasts, push your podcast, because it doesn't have that natural competition of, wait a minute, I want them listening to mine, not yours. They can download as many as they want and listen to them when they want.
It's fascinating for me because, I mean, I'm 50. I just turned 50 last month, and turning the corner on all the world and how much it's changed for a guy like you who's doing comedy, agent, trying to get parts, getting in Seinfeld. I mean, gosh, you were in, I mean, I could sit here and list all the things, Friends, I mean, That's So Raven, George Lloyd, all these things that you've been involved in, but now having this direct link to the audience in a way that maybe you didn't in the 80s when you're trying to get on stage and your agent needed to book you on to somewhere where they had something for your thoughts to be heard. I think that's the good part of Twitter, right? That's the good part of social media, is that everyone has a brand. That's also the worst part to some degree, right?
Yeah, it's also, obviously Twitter has its downsides, as certainly no one knows that more than Washington, D.C. But Twitter also helps you get your brand out there, get your point of view out there, get your comedy out there, get your sense of humor out there. I'm as simple as can be, at Hytner. That's my Twitter handle, and it helps with everything. It just does. It helps you promote your brand. And the idea that I like your point. The idea that it's just the kids doing this is really archaic, because we're not. You just turned 50. You said you're not your father's 50-year-old, are you?
Not yet. No, I mean, I could. I still have a VCR here. I'm trying to figure out how to digitize. So I do feel like my old man when that happened. Steve Hytner is Hytner out on Twitter, and that's Gold. Gold, doing tall tales, sports bets, and other vital guy talk. You say you invite the gold standard on. I'm the gold standard on Baltimore sports media, but that's it. Other than that, I got nothing. I got nothing.
Well, hey, you got to be on the podium on something, right?
I'll talk rock and roll with you. I could also do that. And
yeah, I'm a huge rock and roll dude.
All right, well, maybe one day I'll be gold or just silver on the Gold Show, or just trying to work my way through bronze. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on and visiting. Hope to make your acquaintance. And if you want to be bored the weekend before Christmas, you come watch the Chargers and Ravens with me out in L.A., all right?
You know what? I would love to, and we're going to have you on the podcast. We'll talk a little rock and roll.
Rock and roll, sports, and gambling. I don't gamble much, but it's always a gamble when I do. Steve, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
All right, talk to you soon. Be well.
You got it. Hytner's the way to find him, out on Twitter doing stand-up comedy and doing a podcast each and every day. That's Gold with Steve Hytner. That's Hytner. And, of course, you would remember him. You say, yeah, that's a Seinfeld guy. Yeah, that's a Seinfeld guy. And you can Google him up as well. You can find me out in the biotoyota.com audio vault, podcasting for the kids, as they say, 24 hours a day. Download the TuneIn Radio app. You can listen live from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper delivers digitally to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where you can get in shape physically and mentally and spiritually. $5 down, $10 a month. That's a bargain at any price. Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Also brought to you, speaking of bet. Get on down to Laurel Park and the Maryland Jockey Club. They're taking bets on the ponies this weekend, and they have a beautiful new sports bar and the biggest TV literally I've ever seen in an indoor space. Is at Laurel Park. Get on down there this weekend. Support them. They're supporting us. They're in the front of the WNST.net website with the entries as well as in our morning newspaper. When the Orioles hire a manager, you'll get it first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Colatzos will be here from 3 until 5 on Thursday, driving you home, getting you ready for football and more football, even a little basketball this week as well. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. I am on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and anywhere the internet takes you, including podcasting. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.